Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Clint Smith. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me, Pat.
Oh, look, thank you for joining us. Whānau who are watching, and don't take this personally, Clint, because, Chewy is often their favourite. I get it. It's all right. It's fine. I'm not jealous about it at all. He's had a real bad migraine all day. So he's just gone, no, I can't make it tonight. I'm like, sweet as. We can put the B team on tonight. Me and Clint, yeah. So, So that's where Chewy is tonight, team. Hopefully he'll be back with us tomorrow. But for those of you who have had migraines, I don't ever think I've had a migraine. But I understand they're quite debilitating and they can take quite a long time to get over. But no, I don't think I've ever really had one. I'm not sure about that, though. Bad headache, migraine, where's the line? How are you, sir? How's life at the moment?
I'm good, actually. Working with some really good projects. A lot of organisations that have really been screwed over by this government, really.
Wow.
But we're fighting the good fight. Trying our best.
It's not something that I was going to talk about tonight, but I'm reminded, I'm just bringing up my Twitter profile as I'm doing this. I was reminded of how Mr. Luxon said to us all that they were going to get rid of dumb spends, dumb money, that kind of stuff. And I saw this one today, Oranga Tamariki cuts family start program to lose frontline staff. A family, and they are a group around Nelson, I think, a Nelson-based organisation that supports the most vulnerable tamariki and their whānau across the top of the South Island is set to lose almost 40% of its frontline staff. Frontline staff, remember, we're supposed to touch those ones, as Oranga Tamariki reduces its funding. And I just put out a message today that goes, dumb money, according to Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, that's what they're getting rid of there. So, yeah, there must be a lot of people out there hurting, and it's, what are you finding? I mean, like, I know, because on some level, any kind of organisation that employs someone, it's a job, and we rely on the income for our bills and stuff. But is it mostly about that for groups out there? Is it about the services they're providing? What are they really facing? What's the biggest struggles at the moment?
For the ones that I work with, it's really about the services they provide. So I think I mentioned I work with some groups in the disability sector.
Yep.
That's really hard at the moment. And there's a lot of fear about where that's going because you've got Louise Upston in there who, her first moves have been to cut benefits and then cutting back this and that. So, and of course in the green space, anything to do with climate is just getting hammered. So yeah, it's really about those outputs, and I mean, obviously, you feel for the people losing their jobs as well. I live near to Wellington, and I go in there, and the people, those public servants have been losing their jobs. It's really hard, but it's also the construction sector all over. I just got my house repaired, and they were, initially it was hard to get them to sign the contract, but by the time they had it, they were chomping at the bit because construction's just going through the floor everywhere. And that's going to hurt the wider economy. It's really bad.
Yeah, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is some stuff mentioned on the working group last night. And one of the topics they talked about was the iRex ferries and the cost that is coming out to be just to cancel them. And I think it was in that topic, you're confused. I watched so much content, whether it was in that topic or a conversation or another one, but about, constructions happening over on Picton that were for this that have just all been stopped. Who knows, might have been a 5-year plan for that construction company to build, and it just stopped. Just gone altogether. So we talked about this previously. It's not just the ferries and the services to New Zealanders that have been lost. It's the businesses that were providing the infrastructure for those services. This government screwed them over as well. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and almost impulsive decision making. So we're not going to do that now, or we're going to pause all the school builds while we have a good think about it, or we're going to pause all the state house build while we have a think, and that has real world effects. All those companies, all those people are suddenly, putting down tools and not any money. And a lot of them are going over to Oz where they can work.
Well, I mean, that's the same as happened. We always talk about the Skyhawks in the Air Force. Once they were mothballed, we lost all our pilots. And so it's almost impossible to get a decent Air Force started up again if you ever did want one. It'll be the same as this. A whole bunch of building sector goes off overseas to work elsewhere. Then when we want to ramp up the building sector, they won't be here to be ramped up. So Yeah, I mean, gosh, we're trying our best, Clint, to have positive spins and positive news and stuff as well, and sometimes it's hard. Why don't we? We'll start.
I'll give you a little bit of positivity. So, the government build program, which was Kiwi Build and the State House Build and all that stuff that Phil Twyford started, that hit 25,000 houses complete at the end of June, 1,600 houses just in June itself, and something like a third of all houses built in the last 3 months were by the government build program, and that's working exactly as it was meant to. It was meant to, when the private sector started going down, the government demand would still be there and keep it all going. And so the bad news is this government's stopping the funding for that. The good news is that's a proven model, and it's something that the next left-wing government can bring back.
Yeah, but only if those companies are still here to bring it back too. This is what I'm saying. If this government shuts down the industry, and those labourers, those hammer hands, they go, oh, fuck this, I'm off to Queensland, or those companies go under, they may not be here to ramp back up. It's a travesty. It's terrifying when you think about it. It's just, it's the same as our nurses, our junior doctors. When they go off, they don't come back very easily. We don't have the funds, the finances, or the size to entice them back. So we've got to keep them. And it doesn't seem to be this government's priority. Hey, I realize we didn't do this beforehand, but just tell me, and this is a little sound check, that you can hear there's a little bit of music playing behind me. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. We always do that before we start, but when I forget to do it, it always seems to be the time it falls over. So it's just worth checking before we get going. All right. Hey, listen, Clint, this is something we're doing at the moment just to let people know about. We have our merch shop open a couple of weeks a month, probably more like a couple of weeks every 6 weeks. And we like to tag it on to our buffer merch. I'm actually wearing some tonight, this one here. This one was when we supported medical aid for Palestinians. That's why it's the Palestinian colours, or the Gazan flag colours. This month, we're supporting Rainbow Storytime and their legal action against Brian Tamaki. Everyone who purchases some buffer gear. And can I say, at the moment, I think we've had record sales for the merch drop, because the guys from Rainbow Storytime have got on to us as well, and they've been pushing out through their channels. So if you purchase any buffer gear in this kind of week and a half period, then 25% of the profits will go straight to Rainbow Storytime's legal aid. However, we've had a generous patron also offer to match that donation up to $500. So basically, it equals up to $500. 50% of the profits will go straight to Rainbow, the equivalent of straight to Rainbow Storytime's feed. So if you want to get behind them, listen, the other thing I want to always make really clear is if you got a couple of bucks and you can't spend it on a $90 hoodie or something, then on the website is also a link just to their direct Give a Little page. So, I know that we get out of this when you guys buy hoodies, and we're grateful for that. But if you can only do one thing, like one or the other, then this month go and support them. So the Give a Little website's there as well, bhnshop.nz. Our gear's all there as well. Hoodies, t-shirts, personalised hoodies and t-shirts as well, and of course the buffer gear. So, yeah, it's been quite a large uptake. My 18-year-old's going to have a bit of a job to do a bunch of stacking of envelopes when the gear turns up next week. So thanks very much, everybody, for being involved, and I know the guys from Rainbow Storytime are stoked. So yeah, bhnshop.nz. All right. I'll tell you what I'd like to start with. There's a couple of meaty stories. I really would like to start talking about the American election. I had a couple of US stories lined up to play about Tim Walz, but I actually think TVNZ didn't do too bad of a job tonight on explaining what's going on. So let's have a look, listen to what they had to say about the VP choice, the potential VP choice for Kamala Harris made to try and beat Donald Trump.
Marching to a new beat, a freshly energized Democratic Party.
And they are.
Turning up in their thousands, braving the heat and rain for their presidential hopeful Kamala Harris.
Qualified to do the job. Doesn't steal, doesn't rape, things like that. Yeah.
I want to see change.
We're gonna win.
No, we're not going back.
No,
we're not going back. She's not the felonious thug.
I believe in democracy and freedom. That's really the bottom line.
Inside this 10,000-seat arena, the Vice President introducing her own replacement if she wins the presidency.
Good evening, Philadelphia!
The Minnesota governor is considered a moderate amongst Democrats.
Which is a very interesting spin, because amongst the right, he's considered extremely far left. So this is a part of the conversation that we'll get into.
Kind of politician who turns up to events in a t-shirt and camouflage cap.
To his former high school football players, he was coach. The nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States.
Democrats hope he'll appeal to rural America, who could be considering Trump.
These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
And for people who don't know, he's the one that coined that weird phrase. So however all the GOP has been called weird at the moment, which is a great turn of phrase, he's the guy that coined it. Probably gave him a bit of a foot in the door to be the selection as well.
Well, Kamala Harris's rise to become the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee has reinvigorated her party. Her challenge will be convincing the millions of Americans in small towns and rural areas whose lives have become harder in recent years.
I'm still a conservative, but I will support the Harris ticket 100%. We have to purge the Republican Party of the crazy people. I'm sorry. I know some of you will be offended by this, but that's the way it is.
She's about to start an aggressive tour of states that could flip either way. Hot on her heels, Trump's VP pick, J.D. Vance, holding his own competing rally down the road earlier in the day.
Tim Walz's record is a joke.
Democrats believe they are in a battle for the soul of the nation.
Reproductive rights, civil rights, human rights.
We got to get this fixed before these nutties take it.
There's now just 90 days until the US election. Those here expecting it'll be one of the most consequential in modern history.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, actually. It probably will be. So a few things about Timmy Boy. He is probably, if you look at the policies he's put through, the more progressive choice that she could have gone with. He's being attacked from the right already for things like tampons in boys' changing rooms, which is actually not even policy, but kind of an attack that hasn't worked thus far for the GOP. And the thing I'm really interested in, Clint, is, you know, since the Bernie Sanders sort of revolution in the mid-10 years ago, the mid-teens, there's been a lot of us on the outside looking in and go, the system's rigged. They really just need to burn it to the ground. You know, they can't keep doing this to left voters and expecting them to vote, because if they don't, the worst one will get in. And it does feel a little bit like this is a bit of a test case. You know, we all know that left-wing policies are popular. You know, whether it's in America, background gun checks, or, you know, whether it's in New Zealand, the capital gains tax or whatever. But you seem to get the corporate Democrat or the corporate Labourite, and they kind of keep it more centrist. That's not where he sits. He sits a bit further to the left. And so this could be a real referendum on, are these more left policies really as popular as the polls tend to say they are? So I'm fascinated by it. What about you?
Yeah. I think he's such an interesting choice, and you know, everything we've seen of him today, he's one of these people who can express left-wing values as just common sense and kindness and just what a good, decent person does, you know, and that's something that, a lot of, I think, left-wing leaders do struggle with, maybe, you know, that they are overeducated and out of touch with the working class. But, you know, someone like this, you know, you think in New Zealand of Savage or Kirk, or even contemporarily like Karen McNulty. You know, they talk like ordinary people. They and they're prepared to not prepared to put up with any nonsense. You know, he'll call these things out as weird and, you know, for him, un-American, and say, no, that's not what our values are. Our values are kindness, not bullying. When you guys are the weird ones, and that you're all concerned with, you know, attacking trans people and all these things. You're not actually focused on what ordinary Americans who aren't driven by that kind of hate, what they care about. And so, I think he's a really good choice in that respect. And also Minnesota, has I think it's got the largest Muslim population percentage in America. So that's quite an important population for them to be shoring up. I think he's going to be quite a good pick for a number of reasons. And obviously the white male side of it, they needed that balance as well. So, I think it's a good pick.
So what you're saying is he's a DEI hire because, they needed to pander to the white male vote, didn't they? I mean,
absolutely.
I'm making a joke, but it's exactly what it is. The only time they bring it up though is when the person in question has a brown face. When they have a white face and they've been employed for a specific reason to attract a specific demographic, that's just smart politics. If they've got a brown face, then it's a DEI hire. And the other thing about his record that JD Vance was talking about is like, go for it, boy. Attack him on his record. He brought free school lunches into his state whilst the Republicans were voting down the family tax credit. Go for it. Go after him. I thought today about the only thing that will be more exciting, or maybe not more exciting, but as exciting as a debate between Kamala Harris and Trump will be frickin' Walz and JD Vance. I mean, God, that would just be like popcorn fest. I can't wait. I can't wait. The other thing, JD Vance has obviously become an embarrassment. Yeah. And there is plenty of credible sources saying Trump is annoyed and wished that he hadn't done it. And the way he's got around that is by saying you don't vote for the vice president. The vice president is basically ceremonial. They don't matter. But now he's stuck with a problem because either the vice president doesn't matter, therefore he's got no reason to go after Walz, or the vice president does matter and he has to own JD Vance. He's kind of stuck both ways. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the reality is that Vance does matter for Trump a lot because look at Trump's age. The odds that he won't be able to see out a term are quite high, and it's perfectly legitimate to say who takes up the reins if you can't complete your term. This really weird guy who he's had some funny stories made up about him in couches, but actually, like, what he says about himself is weird as well. So, he's a very online right guy, and I don't think that plays as broadly as we get used to seeing those guys. We live in that online world as well, but actually out in the real world, it's guys like Walz who are much more normal.
I was thinking the other day as well, one fantastic result that there could be from my side of things, because I'm a bit of a sadist, but also, where I sit politically, is if Trump loses this and he's still here in 4 years' time, the utter egomaniac, could you imagine him? If he can get 3 sentences together, do you not think he's going to try it one more time as an 82-year-old? And what would the Republican Party do then? I mean, I just go like, if he loses, and let's just say it's 50-50 now. Harris does seem to be pulling a bit ahead, but it's a long way to go. Let's say it's 50-50. If he loses, I hope that he's still here in 4 years' time to actually give it another go and just finally put that Republican Party into the dirt where it belongs.
I was thinking about this the other day. We still think of Trump as being this aberration, but actually, it's been 12 years since the Republicans put up anyone else than Trump as their presidential candidate. He and what he represents is now deeply embedded. I used to think, before Trump that, the whole Nixon Southern strategy, right? It was very much the Republicans of the era were rich, educated elites, and they were trying to appeal to the poor Southerners. And it was kind of appealing to the rubes, basically, by running on racism and all those things. And they've been doing it for so long that the people they were basically trying to trick to vote for them 50 years ago are now the people who are actually running the party. It's, what was once sort of just a tool to appeal to voters is now actually core of the party's beliefs.
And that's why you look at it, as you say, not an aberration, but a continuation of the line they were on. Trump is the obvious conclusion to what they started. And yeah, it does make me think as well what comes next. I mean, we are going to talk about this later when we talk about, hoping for the days of John Key that they talked about on the working group last night. But I think about, when there are lots of American commentators at the moment who are going, gosh, I saw this video the other day of George W. Bush, and he's like a Rhodes Scholar compared to Donald Trump, but what we used to think about him. And you can say the same for John Key and for Luxon, how many of us wouldn't just give our left arm to have a John Key-led government right now if we had to have a national government, especially around, Maori issues and that kind of stuff and what was going on there. And in my mind, I kind of go, okay, national went from John Key to Luxon, and then I think about their policies, and I go, America went from Bush to Trump, and I go, fuck, what's next? What's the next jump going to look like, and how are we going to handle that? Just questions. I don't have answers for that. Pretty terrifying, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I care, or the super chat, thank you for that, says, heard a great quote from American elections that apply to our next election too. Sometimes you just have to flush twice to get rid of that. Okay, fair enough. And also Rajan lets us know that Cory Bush lost to an AIPAC candidate. Thank you for your super chat there, Rajan, as well. Do you have any, I was going to say as well, because you brought up attacks on transgender individuals. And I know this is not that conversation, but I noticed you on Twitter when I was putting some things out about the boxing in Paris. This is not a topic that I've brought to talk about tonight, but because you're with us and I saw you kind of fighting the good fight, do you want to share anything, any thoughts around what you've seen and what you're thinking with that?
Yeah, it just, I'm not going to name names, but there's someone in that discussion on the other side of it on Twitter who I know back from uni days, and it made me really sad actually to see him like purposely calling this woman he just to be hurtful, just because she doesn't conform to your ideas of what a woman should be. And I did see some people saying, look, pointing out that she's not transgender is kind of saying she's not even transgender. But I think I look at it a different way, that these men and women say that they're standing up for the rights of women and that trans are this huge danger to the rights of women. But then you've got an actual cis woman and they're attacking her too. And it just shows to me that it's not actually coming from any place of principle. It's coming from this quite dark place it's driven by hate and unhappiness in themselves, and actually it's quite anti-woman as well as being anti-trans, and it made me sad.
Because what it's saying is, this is what women should look like. This is how women should act, and if they don't, then I'm going to accuse them of things. I actually was watching, Piers Morgan's become part of my algorithm because I've watched a few things, and they had a debate on the other day. And you know who Riley Gaines is? Riley Gaines is an American collegiate swimmer who's now the head of the, What is a Woman Brigade. And I fought myself because I kind of feel like we, being the left, but I'll just say me, I don't want to play that identitarian kind of game where I go, well, what do you look like? But I had to be honest with you. I'm actually not going to show. I got a photo. When you look to people who are saying this is what a woman looks like, she's an athlete. She's got broad shoulders and she's got a really big jaw. Like, it looks like a steroid use has happened. I'm like, but how? Just because? How are you, who may not be the atypical, cover of a magazine looking, person for femininity, now saying, what is it? Like, I saw a tweet like, a woman doesn't sit like this about the boxer.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? What are these ideals? And And you're saying as well that we're all equal and we should be this and I have my own power. You're putting people into boxes that kind of dehumanize them and depowerize them.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. I was tempted to put up the picture of Metallica from Ride the Lightning on the inside cover, and it's the early 80s. And this is a heavy metal band, but they've all got long flowing hair. And I remember the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, it's a picture of their girlfriends. And I'm like, oh no, it's actually the band, because one image of a person, they can look quite different, and people do look different, and there's no kind of like, this is exactly a masculine look, this is a feminine look. There are obviously people who bridge those. Is it that one? Yeah,
that is Ride the Lightning. I mean, this is the whole, go for glam rock in the 1980s, mate. You got look at Poison, look at any of those bands. And then this is them today. Old men with short hair. Still rocking it though. Yeah, it's so interesting as well. I think you're right as well. It's like it's people trying to sell themselves as pro-woman whilst they set stereotypes and ideals that oppress women. It's just like, what are you talking about? Anyway.
Yeah. And I think it so often comes from a place of, not having themselves managed to establish relationships with women that they've been happy with.
Yeah. So you're calling them incels. That's basically what you're saying, is it?
In a nice way. Yeah.
Hey, let's have a look at what happened last night on the working group, because there was a few interesting conversations, and I love having you on, because like we've said before, you've been on the 9th floor, right, for a government in those meetings and in those conversations. So it's always good to get your perspective. The working group, often, as I said to you beforehand, for the people who are watching, we like the working group because we get to laugh at Damien Grant. He's the gift that keeps on giving. But last night there was kind of like 2 or 3 little conversations that I thought were interesting, and none of them particularly long, a couple of minutes each, interesting about where we are today and what's going on. This first one's actually about iRex, and the ferries at the moment, kind of aren't really news, but some funding, some finances have been released as to what it's costing us, New Zealanders, our taxpayer dollars, to cancel iRex. And remember one thing, whānau, I thought that Karen McInulty was very, very good the other day on Q&A when he pulled up the journalist, I forget her name, Katie Bradford, got it. I have to go through her mum, surname of her mum, then go back. I have to go backwards. And Katie Bradford said, well, you guys wasted $1 billion. And he goes, well, hang on. It wasn't wasted until National cancelled it. When you're building, he didn't say this, but when you're building a house and you get the plans drawn up, you've spent 1/10 and generally of the whole price of the house. And yeah, if you stopped it right there, it would feel like a waste. But if you build the house, it's not a waste. So it's kind of a bit the vibing with this one, the iRexes as well. They're going to try and sell it as that Labor wasted $1 billion because it's got to $1 billion the costs. And actually, it's who cancelled it needs to own those costs. Let's have a listen to the conversation.
Damien, follow-up question. The Maritime Union of New Zealand has today claimed that the cancellation cost for the iRex ship build is likely to come in at more than $300 million and could run up to a maximum cost approaching $500 million at current rates. This would be on top of $500 million that's already been sunk in on the cancelled iRex project. I'm as pissed off as any Labour Party supporter that the bloody bike lane over the Harbour Bridge that never got built cost us $150 million. But sweet zombie Jesus, Labour shouldn't be lectured on economic mismanagement by a government that has spent $1 billion on a Toyota Corolla, should they?
I don't know whether it cost $150 million for the bike lane, but anyway, come back to that.
I
decision.
heard it was only 50, to be fair.
That decision, to cancel was bloody stupid.
Right.
Absolutely stupid, because it was a good deal on the ships.
Such a good deal.
They were slightly larger because they were then more rail capable.
Yes.
Which is really what we need if we're trying to decarbonise our economy.
Yes.
And there are some issues there around, but I'm presuming that they could still use the same channels. There's discussion about, how big. I guess these big boats are just as manoeuvrable and could have used the same channels. Come back to the point around the infrastructure. I know one contractor working in Picton, they started to dig up, a place to put. It was just a letdown area or Placetown area, there was a whole lot of asbestos. So that contract blew out. Most contracts that we've seen, Transmission Gully being a classic, have blown out costs. It was a big project. No one liked the blowout and the cost. But the issue for us long term is, can we afford not to have the best ferries and the best infrastructure to link our two major islands? And I think it's a bit of a mess, and I think the Minister of Finance is finding this out now.
We should build a tunnel.
I've always believed in the tunnel. For
the amount of money that we spent on COVID, we could have built a tunnel.
And actually, I think I've seen some reports that show that if we did build a tunnel, it would have huge economic impact for the South Island. So I'm all for this.
It's about twice the distance of the English Channel.
Thousands and thousands of employers and employees who got money to keep them going through COVID, who are now completely ignoring that.
Yes,
and I think they need to be reminded that the money we spent kept people moving through a really, really unique and challenging time.
Once the century pandemic.
I spent that money on a holiday.
He did. He loved it. He loved that money.
I got so much money.
If you're that concerned,
I'm concerned. I'm concerned for his soul.
About wise taxpayer spending, you should give it
quick
back.
round.
So there you go. We all do always like to find a little space there, Clint, to make Damien Grant look like an absolute see you next Thursday. We've already discussed numerous times how, when he tries to tell a joke, he just completely reveals his true nature. But moreover than that, the iRex. So this is the deal, yeah? We've lost $1 billion bucks, and we have nothing for it because $3 billion was too much. So what that means is if they spend anywhere near $1 to $1.5 billion, you'll be within cooey of having the Ferrari. So for them to get out of this with any kind of credibility, they have to spend $500 million or less. And what the hell is that going to look like? Because if you're telling me for 2/3 of the price of a Ferrari, like if they spend $1 billion, that gets us to $2 billion. For 2/3 of the price for what I could have got a Ferrari for, but I get something 50 times worse, it's a terrible investment. They got to spend very little money to save any face. They're not going to be able to. It's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. And Barb Edmonds asked Nicola Willis some questions about this in Parliament yesterday. And Willis was getting up and saying, well, I've just been down to Centre Port here in Wellington, and they showed me the wharf, and I said, could this take a ferry? And they're like, yeah, no problems. And Barb goes, well, I've heard you're looking at these E-flexes. This is these ones that are made in Stena-line. They made in China, and they're nearly as big as the ones that you've cancelled. So you're going to need new wharfs, aren't you? And she basically admitted it. And she said, yeah, but we won't be paying for it. So God knows who's going to be paying for it. But yeah, by the time you buy the ferries, and they'll be close to $1 billion now because we were going to pay $500 million, but the price of ships has gone through the roof and the exchange rate has got worse. And then you pay landside stuff, different stuff than the stuff that's just been cancelled. You're going to be lucky to get under $3 billion, and what are you going to end up with? Worse ones.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been saying the whole time. They'll either spend the same money. And they will. They'll spend this. They'll either spend the same money and get worse, or they'll spend more and get worse. I mean, she's the one that bought up the Ferrari. So what they're basically saying now is they're going to have the good old reliable second-hand Corolla for the price of a Ferrari. That's what's going to happen. They're going to get the lesser product for the price they could have got their Ferrari for. There's absolutely almost, even if they did it for $1.6 billion and they went, oh, look, we saved $400 million. Yeah, another $400 million for a Ferrari. There's no way out of this. It's going to work for them. And even if they go, well, we're not paying for it, it's going to be privatized, that's still no way out for them because that's not going to work well for them at the next election.
Yeah, there's some really awkward moments coming because that contract they're talking about, the break cost on that contract, that has to be signed off by cabinet. So at some point, she's going to have to come along with paper to cabinet and say, "Look, can I have 300 or 500 million to give to Kiwi Rail, to walk away from the contract?" And you can just imagine every minister sitting around that table who's been cutting frontline services, saying, "Wait, you're giving them 300 million not to build a ferries for us.
Yeah.
And then that's before you get to, questions of privatisation and not having rail, which, New Zealand First is big advocates of rail. They've always been huge on rails. So, trying to get Winston over the line on buying ferries that don't have rail, that's not going to be easy.
It's just everything everything they touch. Like we're not ever letting go this $14 billion worth of tax cuts, borrowing money, $3 billion to landlords. We can't, because when we get told by the health czar that the health system could go bankrupt, could be broke, and you add in $17 billion that this government's taken out of the pot, my problem is the only way they get re-elected is continuing through sort of culture war games and blame Labor. I just want to be able to have an honest conversation. You guys fucked up. You fucked up this ferry thing massively. I would have more respect for you if you said, you know what, we might have got that one wrong, but we need another 3 years to fix up our mistake. Okay, not fair, but I'll believe you. Anything else is just not believable. It's completely annoying.
Yeah. And I think it's these impulsive decisions. They came in and they decided to cancel this huge project that had been worked on for 5 years. They'd gone through all the different options of ferries you could buy. They'd looked at all the options. And the costs had escalated, but that does happen. And to cancel without working out what the alternative would cost you. Sometimes things are expensive, but they need to be done, and that's a bugger. But you just throwing your toys out doesn't actually solve the problem. And we see this all over the place where they've just gone, no, it's too much. The school buildings that cost too much, so you're just not going to do them then. There's no solution.
The other thing that's completely frustrating is we had this conversation about rates yesterday. The same group of people, class of people, those people who are in ratepayers associations and stuff, who when it's a lefty kind of thing, don't want to pass on all this debt to their kids and grandkids. That's their line. And then something like this, or something like the infrastructure in a city, they don't want to pay the bill now, so they're happy to pass it on to their kids and their grandkids, because that's what they're doing. It's like, get consistent, people. Like, get consistent or get out of the conversation. It's annoying. All right. Yeah. Sorry about the dog. The people were baying for blood to make sure I put the dog on. So there we go. The dog's got to go on. It goes like this. Chewy's the favorite. Then it's Nala. Then it's probably any video I play. And then it's me. I'm okay.
Mate.
Hey, let's have a look at let's have a look at another conversation. And this is what I'm saying. Last night was quite interesting because I had kind of different angles and different conversations. This one was about, actually, this is what we talked about at the start. You look at the government you've got now, whether we relate that to this government or America. You look at what there was 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you used to think that was awful. But that compared to what you've got today is kind of like, oh my God, a light on the hill. They talked a bit about John Key, and John Key being at the conference over the weekend, being the person sounding off to Christopher Luxon to pull back on the race stuff. Let's have a listen.
Look, just as the conference was about to drown in a white milk vanilla pool of beige mediocrity, former Prime Minister and honorary Western playmate of Xi the Great begged National to dim the burning crosses a tad. Does it say something?
Unique and challenging times.
My apologies. This computer's done what I love it to do. Just have fun with yourselves for a second, guys. Sometimes does this, it jumps all over the place. So we consider this to be kind of a really special little moment for the people watching live, because this never makes it to the edit, because it gets cut out. So enjoy a little backroom stuff, guys. You won't see this in the clip.
Just a treat for the live ones.
Just a treat for your liveys. Absolutely. All right, we'll just go from here.
That's as good as it's going to get. Look, just as the conference was about to drown in a white milk vanilla pool of beige mediocrity, former Prime Minister and honorary Western playmate of Xi the Great begged National to dim the burning crosses a tad. Does it say something about how weak Luxon is as a Prime Minister that John Key has to pause counting money in Beijing to plead for National to tone down the naked anti-Māori attack?
It's a very sad state that we've got ourselves into, and I have to say that we were proud of the progress that we've made in this area. And for someone like myself who grew up learning nothing about Māori history or Māori culture, it was a steep learning curve when I came into Parliament. And I think there are many people, particularly in the South Island, who have learned more, they have appreciated it and are moving forward. And there was race baiting in the lead up to the election, and it was very, very sad. And I think that for John Key to tell the government, the National Party, to tone down is a measure of what he sees as a concerning and growing situation around division in our country, and we should never, ever condone that.
Damien, China's honorary ambassador John Key was quick to point out that it is ACT in New Zealand first who are generating all the race-baiting policy that is destabilising the country. Is it time for David Seymour to heed Matua Key's wisdom on race relation? I'm asking for the Uyghurs.
Put so eloquently.
No, it is not the role of... If you want to talk about race baiting, right?
We do. You seem to be finding it difficult to find your words, Mr. Grant. A little bit like last week when you got put in your place as well, but we'll give you another chance.
So you look at what Seymour is doing. Seymour is saying, hold on, we need to have a national dialogue. What are the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi? And I challenge people, go and Google principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. You're not going to find four principles articulated anywhere. You've got to go and you've got to try and drag them out of the 87 lands case. They're not well articulated. They're not well put anywhere that you can actually use.
Sorry, I'm sorry to pause this, but I just did exactly what he suggested. This is the first time I've done this. Updated structure around the Treaty of Waitangi, principles, partnership, protection, and participation. So that wasn't that difficult to find. I literally did the challenge he said. Like I literally just Googled principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, and Google has scraped the Treaty of Waitangi principle NZ curriculum site to say partnership, protection, and participation. But I'm so sorry, Mr. Grant, to interrupt you. Please continue.
I'm moving in a situation where there is something. The argument is that there is a treaty partnership. Well, what is the partnership? How does it work? Where is the definition? Where are the boundaries? And Seymour wants to have that conversation.
No, it's evolving.
And the reaction, and no, well, okay, but Damien,
he doesn't want to have that conversation. One of the things, Clint, we've been saying about this government is for people to be aware of all these words that sound okay on level one. We're all equal. That might be what they're saying, but what they're putting into practice to get it to we're all equal is insidious and dangerous. So this has got about a minute to go. I think we'll play the end of this, then you can jump in.
There are a lot of people, myself included, who look at the treaty and say this is an issue of property rights, where property rights have been expropriated by the Crown. Those property rights need to be reinstated. I don't believe that the Treaty of Waitangi creates a partnership. I don't think that the treaty can or should evolve. Now, I might be wrong about that.
You are wrong.
And people should be say, hey, Damien, I disagree with that. But the reaction...
Hey, Damien, I disagree with that.
Is to say, oh my God, you want to talk about the treaty? You must be a racist. This is the thing that's impeding the dialogue, and there are lots of people out there who don't want to go into this issue because they don't want to be called a racist. And people like the Maori Party going out there and saying Winston Peters is a waste of Maori blood. The Maori Party going out there and criticising Karen Chhour as not being the right sort of Maori. That is the party of racism. The Maori Party is a party of race supremacy.
We'll get into this in the next. We will get this into the next thing.
I want to hear Damien's response.
Such is the level, I guess, of frustration and tension that's not good for any of us. And I think we do need to have discussions, but it's the way that it's portrayed, I guess, and the challenge rather than the conversation, which is what we need. I think we do need to continue with the conversations.
Yes.
People like myself still have huge gaps in my knowledge, and that a lot of people around say, we seem to be moving ahead. There is always something intervening, coming in from left field over, a local resource consent or something like that people shake their heads and they don't quite understand the history. history, bringing Māori history into schools, I think, is a really smart thing, and I'm proud to be part, of a government that did that.
But there we go. That's the end of that clip there as well. And yes, he is the gift that keeps on giving, and he has given us a gift tonight. So thank you for that, Mr. Grant. But there you go, Clint. I'll just throw the ball to you, mate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. You said, I believe in property rights, and if property rights have been expropriated by the Crown, then they should be righted. And, actually, that's never going to happen because so much of New Zealand was stolen that it's never going to be put right. And the principles is kind of a way of saying, look, we're not going to actually honour the word of the treaty. Truth is, but we'll at least give some nod to it, and because the treaty says it's all belongs to the iwi leaders, and the each iwi, and that they have sovereignty over their land, and that's not reality, and it's not going to be a reality. And when the treaty principles were created in those legal cases, it was a way of acknowledging that wrong had been done and some right needed to be made, even if it couldn't be fully honouring the contract. So yeah, it's interesting he said that, but
the other thing is, and this is what we're saying, the complete horse shit. It's like they're pretending that it's that they've got pure motives. I mean, we can just stop and go when he goes, I'm one of these that doesn't really understand. I said, well, go and fucking educate yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so what you're saying is you're one of these people. If you want to find out, then you can do the work, or you can go, I'm going to go and align myself politically and get them to tell me what it is, and then I'll know. No, you've no one's stopping you finding out. I mean, you can even start with Dr. Google. Dr. Google can probably help you in some of these things. Help me. Did what you said, and it came back saying partnership, protection, and participation. But it's people who are saying, I don't know. Oh, what have you done to learn? Oh, nothing. Yeah. So, well, how about the fair thing to do would be, how about you go and do some work, right? Start with some work, get that sorted. And if you're still at a point where you're not well enough informed, we'll then have the conversation nationwide. But do the work first. Don't just come in, don't start the game without stretching, or else you're going to get injured.
And like you say, this isn't an honest attempt at a debate. It's part of a whole slew of anti-Māori policies that are about race baiting. It is interesting that Key is trying to get him to stop that. When Key came in to head National, they just lost in 2005 with Don Brash race baiting, and he said, look, we can't win by alienating Māori and alienating anyone who doesn't want to be associated with racism, and so he ran quite a middling line on race relations. Worked with the Māori Party and government, established whānau order, and those things. Whereas these guys, even a Māori word has to come out of an invite to a Matariki celebration. It's insidious with these guys, and maybe it's a reflection of if they hadn't won this time, maybe they would have sat back and reflected and said, actually, maybe we need to pivot to the centre rather than playing up racial division. But they're in now, and it's not your John Key's National Party. These guys, they don't have the depth of policy. It's all meme level policy and race baiting. That's essentially what this government's about.
I would challenge one of the things you've just said. Not that I know, but more with a thought process. What do you call it? A thought exercise. Maybe they are John Key's National Party, but because of their any means to an end power grab, they've had to give quite a lot away to the other two. If they were a majority party by themselves, maybe it wouldn't be quite like us. And that then just comes back and speaks to Luxon's lack of leadership and desperation to put himself in power no matter what. Maybe. I don't know that, but maybe.
I think on the Māori stuff, I think that's probably been pushed mainly by the others, although, they ran very hard on co-governance, and it very much was echoes of the foreshore and seabed stuff
Yep,
more
no,
brash,
fair.
wasn't it? A mate of mine would say, yeah, they're not John Key's National Party, they're Cameron Slater's Labour Party. National Party. These are the guys who grew up in politics reading whale oil, and that's where their views are coming from. So I think if you have you watched The Wire, and the thing is, each generation of the drug trade gets more and more brutal and less sophisticated.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how it feels a bit in Parliament. They criticised us when we came to power in 2017 for that we hadn't done the work on the policies, and we had these working groups and stuff. But the level of policy that we had organised in 2017 looks light years ahead of these guys, who basically came in with, we're going to cancel a bunch of stuff and have tax cuts. And that was kind of it, and yeah, I mean, you look back, maybe it is getting sophisticated on both sides. Maybe that's something that needs to be worked on, but there's no Lockwood Smiths, there's no Simon Powers, Simon Uptons, or the people of that kind of intellectual caliber in today's national government, and I think it shows.
We're going to have a look at a Karen Chhour conversation. It's only 60 seconds from last night when Andrea Vance has written a bit about Karen Chhour, calling her a Karen. But before we do that, just based around what we're talking about as well, I do want to play something that has been going around the Twitterverse and the ecosystems today and yesterday with Chloe Swarbrick, just talking about they came in not knowing anything. What do they know now? What do they still know? So many of you would have seen this, but Chloe Swarbrick had a masterclass in Question Time asking Christopher Luxon to explain how Section 7AA currently worked. That was the question. And he could not get an answer out.
What does Section 7AA of the Oranga Tamariki Act currently do?
What we're doing with Section 7AA, just so with the legislation, we want the legislation to make sure it protects the well-being and the interests of our children above and beyond anything else, and is unambiguous doing so.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
I don't think that went anywhere near close to addressing what Section 7AA of the Oranga Tamariki Act currently does.
Can I say, this is, I don't know, you've probably sat in this chamber listening to these things, but I think this is an atrocious answer from the Speaker of the House. He's about to say, well, he gave an answer, and of course he knows, or why would he be having legislation on it? Like a partisan answer from the Speaker is what it comes across as.
Well, I mean, I think the point is that there was an answer about 7AA, and clearly if the Prime Minister didn't know what it was, he would.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't. He wouldn't. We're going to refresh and go again.
What?
That there was an answer about 7AA, and clearly if the Prime Minister didn't know what it was, he wouldn't be amending it.
Supplementary.
So as a, something that's not appropriate, is it? He's basically, he's got Luxon's back. He's saying he knows what it is, or else why would he be changing it? And that's not appropriate, eh? Would you agree? Yeah. All right. But anyway, Chloe
absolutely. Yeah.
Chloe doesn't give up.
Does the Prime Minister know what Section 7AA of the Oranga Tamariki Act actually currently does, and can he please outline that specifically for the House?
In answer to the first leg of your question, yes.
Supplementary.
Although, in his defence, he does look very uncomfortable, does the Speaker.
Just wait.
Does the Prime Minister see any problem at all with his coalition agreement promise to make decisions based on data and evidence, and his complete inability to produce any data and evidence about why he wants to remove the section of the Oranga Tamariki Act which does the bare minimum on upholding Te Tiriti o Waitangi.
What we are focused on is actually making sure the well-being and the best interests of the most vulnerable children in this country are protected. We want that to come first, above and beyond anything else, above and beyond their cultural needs or anything else. It's important that children are protected and are safe. We'll continue to do that.
So, yeah, how about you can speak to that, Clint.
I mean, if he really was concerned about making sure that the law was doing the best to protect children, then he would gather evidence and discover whether 7AA was helping or hindering that, and then he would be able to provide that evidence to the House, wouldn't he? But no, this is not about whether 7AA is good or bad for children. It's him just running a line he has because he's signed a deal to get rid of it, and so he's just going. He doesn't know what it does. He doesn't care.
And the deal he signed again is acting New Zealand first, and that's possibly where he's been dragged across. The other thing, and this is a bit like we talked to Pat Newman, principal, last night on the changes to the maths curriculum, and this government is like the one size fits all. Like he says, even if it's above and beyond the cultural needs, like what if the cultural needs are actually the most important need? Like what if that, whereas he's basically saying we're not going to take any of it into account. We're always going to do what's most needed for that child. What if that's a part of it? Then this government's saying we're not. If it's a part of it, we're not going to do it anyway.
Yeah. It's just a total evidence-free zone. This government, and the number of bills they've passed without bothering to do a select committee or consult, or where they have consulted, they've only talked to their mates, is evidence that they're not being evidence-based. They're just going with their prior positions. They're essentially just rolling out those policies that are in the coalition deal, come hell or high water. It can, groups can get frustrated with the amount of consultation that goes on. Under the last government, bills would take a long time to get developed because they were talking to everyone and trying to find out what would work. But it's that or government by reckons, and and that's kind of what we've got now. Reckons and whatever Luxon had to give ACT in New Zealand first to get over a deal, and a lot of that is just anti-Māori race baiting.
It'd be interesting to know, actually, if you said to Luxon in a future life, what were the main things you wanted to get through? In other words, what did you have to give up for those things you wanted to get through? We pondered out loud last night, Clint, that just looking at the National Party MPs, who are normally, on balance, more moderate than what we're seeing in ACT in New Zealand first. I wonder, we spoke to Chester Burrows before he died, and he was very clear that the gang patch ban was a good headline but terrible policy. So he'd come to that conclusion in later life. I wonder in 10 years from now what all these National Party MPs will look back, especially around te reo issues, what they'll think of what they're doing today around those issues. I wouldn't be surprised if several, if not many of them, are pretty embarrassed by what they're a part of in the House today. Might not see it today, but I think on reflection, perhaps they would be. Perhaps.
Yeah. It's kind of like Nick Smith voting against gay marriage and then in his valedictory saying, yeah, I got that wrong, and I realized I got it wrong when my son came out as gay. And it's like, when it impacts my life. It actually matters what you do. And it matters what you do when the question's in front of you. I kind of don't have much sympathy for, oops, I got that wrong. You're in a position of power. You should be trying to do the right thing all the time. You won't always manage to do it, but you shouldn't be chasing power for its own sake. And I think when you look at Luxon, what you ask, what does he hope to achieve from this? I think you never see him as happy as when he's overseas glad handing with other world leaders.
He's looking for a knighthood and an international position in about 6 years from now. That's what he's looking for out of this whole thing.
But it's the title, it's the prestige.
Yeah. Let's have a look. This last clip from the working group's only 60 seconds, and it's a quick conversation around them responding to what Andrea Vance said about Karen Chhour.
Damien, like every Karen weaponised her tears. Here's a quote from Andrea Vance summing this up. Karen wept for the television cameras about being bullied in Parliament's unsafe workplace. Her crocodilian display of emotion would have been more effective were her party not working to strip away the health and safety protection of employees. The party has re-risen by stoking a culture war, peddling identity policies, and putting a tale of Pākehā grievance at the heart of party identity. Part of that was relentless attacks on the character and motives of those which it disagrees with. ACT, the party of crybabies, is reaping what it sowed, for it is now seeking refuge in manufactured victimhood. That's now trying to seek it is hard to swallow. And there is, of course, an irony in free speech champion Seymour wishing to curtail expression because feelings are hurt. Your thoughts on those righteous words, Damien Grant?
Well, there was no question in that. You just wanted the opportunity to go on.
I totally did. It was all I wanted to do all night. Read those three paragraphs out there.
It was a glorious rant. I don't really care about any of that. What I'm interested in the policies that Karen Chhour is implementing. I think 7AA has been a failure. I think that the obsession with...
I wish you could get Damien to describe it. Maybe he can tell us exactly what it is and how it's implemented today.
Racial identity, which is only increasing, is a problem. I think Karen is correct to confront that, and we should be focusing our resources on people who need it, regardless of their race, and that's what she's attempting to do.
There you go. A very quick little one for there, but yeah, and I see a headline this evening. I haven't looked into it yet. Karen Chhour making statements that Oranga Tamariki is a cash cow. Children's Minister says Oranga Tamariki was a cash cow. That's angered the PSO. We might get into that tomorrow night. But look, we've done a lot on Karen Chhour, especially showing up where ACT has been accused of being the bullies and, you know, the vibe they create. And we've been very clear, it's not okay. I don't believe it's okay for there to be a toxic workplace for anybody. But if we're going to have a conversation about it, let's be honest. How much does your party contribute to that toxic environment? How much did your party do when people like Marama and Kerry Allen and Jacinda and other females on the other side were talking about it last year? It feels like you guys were just going, we're okay. We don't think it's that bad. Now it's one of your guys, a bit like the gay son you were just talking about, Clint, and all of a sudden, got to sort this out. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think, but bullying, rude comments, Parliament's become a whole lot less tolerant to that over the years, and that's probably a good thing. But I would say, it doesn't seem that she's sort of really been bullied so much as had her policies challenged, and that seems to be what's really upsetting her. There was, when she stormed out of the interview of Tova O'Brien the other day, Tova then played some clips that she had been going to play to her, and one was of a survivor of state abuse who had met with Chhour after that report was presented, and Chhour had said to her, "I'm having to do a lot of things that I'm not comfortable with in this job." Presumably referring to maybe the 7AA stuff or all these cuts, because she herself has been through abuse and state care. She knows how serious it is, and yet she is now perpetuating that harm. And I can see that in her shoes that would be very hard and very psychologically damaging. But she doesn't have to do this job. If she doesn't like it, she should not do it. She should say, "I refuse to be part of these policies. These policies are wrong. I quit." Have the stand up for yourself. Don't cling to power for its own sake. It's the worst thing that politicians do. Is I can't leave Parliament. I need to be in here. No, you don't.
I wonder what the difference is between Karen Chhour and Melissa Lee. Because Melissa Lee looked like she was moved on for not being able to do a job. But of course, Karen Chhour is an ACT minister. Exactly. So could that be the difference, even if they're not happy with how she's performing, or they realise it's too much for her? They can't do anything, that is the Prime Minister, because, she belongs to Team Yellow or Pink, whatever colour they've got that day.
Yeah. I think it's up to Seymour. I mean, that's kind of always the reality in a coalition deal, is that the Prime Minister is nominally in charge, but they can't really go firing ministers of a different party without the agreement of that party leader. And yeah, she's not the only minister in those support parties who probably needs to go, but won't go unless their party leader decides that they should. So we're stuck with her, and then she gets an attack of conscience and decides that she's not going to do it anymore.
All right. Hey, listen, we're over. Are you okay for this last story, the Māori Wards, time-wise?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Okay. I'm just going to go through some super chats real quick because people have been doing them through the whole show and we want to thank them for it. Thank you, Peter, for the $2 super chat. Trump supporters, Tea Party members with red hats. I guess, yeah, that's the way it's gone, hasn't it? From Tea Party through to MAGA. That's part of the natural attrition. Another one from Peter there. We have the worst freaking government. Just a general standard statement. Ryzen said, is that convicted fraudster Damien Grant? To which Tawhiri says, Waitangi Grant, too much lemon perhaps. And Gold responds to Rajan by saying, no, that's twice convicted fraudster. Tawhiri again, thank you for all these super chats. The Murray Party sounds like an event. Mr. Arvids Luxon gives debate club talking out his ass. Tawhiri again, thank you for your super chat. Act free speech? No. We meant me speech. Yeah, that's a theme actually. Kiwi Bird as well. Thank you for your super chat. Act freedom for me, but not for thee. So those are all the super chats that have come in, guys. Thank you for your super chats. I'm just deleting them all so I don't do them twice. That's Chewy's job. It's Chewy's job to do them twice. Now, I feel like this whole story is this whole show is kind of led into this moment because we've been talking about issues around Māoridom. We've been talking about what this government's implementing. One of the things they are implementing is this idea about Māori wards. And they've put legislation out that says if your Māori ward was not done by referendum, then you either need to have a referendum by the next election or get rid of it. And so what Kaipara has done, within it feels like seconds of that legislation coming through, is get rid of it. Kaipara, for those who don't know, is sort of, my family had a place at Mangawhai Heads for 40 years, so I know the area well. It's from Mangawhai, which is in north and goes across and up towards the far north sort of thing. I don't think it encompasses Whangarei, but it kind of goes around the bottom of it in the top part of the North Island. So let's have a look at the story and actually I've got a clip to play you from inside as well, not just the news story.
There were police altercations and accusations of racism as hundreds of people protested today about the removal of Kaipara District Council's Maori Ward. It comes just days after the government passed a controversial law change compelling councils that have established a Maori Ward without a referendum to remove them or put them to a public vote. Kaipara District Council covers a huge area north of Auckland and includes the towns of Dargaville and Mangawhai. Māori Affairs correspondent Tiani Wahuri-Hanganui reports.
Outside, the tension was palpable. Protesters fired up as the Kaipara District Council gathered to vote on the future of its Māori ward. The Mayor announced the extraordinary meeting last week, just 24 hours after the government's law change was confirmed. So
even forget the vote, forget this, for any of those things, there is an active direction to do this as quickly as possible. I mean, this Māori ward is going to be there until the next election. So it's not going anywhere today or tomorrow because they've voted it down. So they could have made a choice today to put it to referendum at the next election. They haven't done that. They've just decided to get rid of it today. Gone. So they had a choice to go, well, let's leave it to the people at the next election, or let's get rid of it today, we'll vote it out, and they chose to vote it out. So that's an admission in and of itself as to the direction of the leadership of this governance.
Despite the council having until September to make a decision.
Gibson, Porue, Sua.
But minutes before the hui even began, an unexpected announcement.
We have just handed some documents to the Kaipara District Council in terms of a court injunction.
The legal action adding even more drama to the heated debate inside.
The establishment in need of Maori wards relies on a false narrative. That narrative preaches that Maori have no voice.
New Zealand is racist as a duck.
So can we just have a look as well? Those of you who are watching the video, if you're listening, you'd have to have a look. He's talking about Māori has no voice. Yes, there's Māori in this meeting, but do you think you might be slightly overrepresented by old white grey-haired men? Just talking about representation, like if you're saying we don't need this to be a representation so we can get rid of it, just have a look at that picture. Who you think has the most overrepresentation in that group? Just drink it in, whānau. Drink it in.
It looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's a duck.
As protesters chanted, the blinds were opened. Māori Ward councillor Kaipara District determined to ensure they were seen and heard. Police forced to step in. The councillor given multiple warnings.
Wonder what the warning's for. Not opening the door? Is there a crime in that, sir? I can't open the door? What are you warning me for?
Councillors were urged to delay the vote to a later date so Māori could be directly consulted.
And here's a chance for us to consult with those that it affects.
But the suggestion was rejected. The doors swinging open for a second time. The Mayor's position was clear from the outset.
Personally, I've never believed in division by race and forming voting blocks based on race.
And in the end, the council voted for the Māori Ward to go.
Today is a good day because it brought our people together, it unified us in our fight for existence.
The seat will be scrapped at next year's election. Many here disappointed, but determined to fight on. Ke ani wahuri Hanganui, One News.
I guess you got to say as well, after watching the Māori Party get together groups so quickly to protest what's happening at central government, this could be a rallying cry for Māori and allies and buffers within the Kaipara Harbour area or the district to get together and do some. I like it how the mayor says, "I never believe in division based on race. We should only do things the Pākehā way." It's like, are you aware of what you're saying, fuck knuckle? I'll show you this. This has already sort of been on, but this was from inside. It's be from TVNZ, but it's just raw footage. And you can see Māori Ward councillor is this lady here. I'm not sure who this guy is, but he seems to be an ally because he gets over there and tries to open up the door. I just have a look at this for 30 seconds, what's happening inside the actual room. The room where it happened, as Hamilton would say. She opens the door. So it's just gross. Like, I struggle sometimes, Clint, to be often to use the word racist. I'm more comfortable at times because racism or being racist does commit someone to an ideology that I don't definitely know all the time. Obviously you do some of the time if they're wearing a white hood and throwing their hand in the air, but the whole kind of racially charged racial undertones, racial division, racial subjugation, if it all means racist, fine. But this is just fucking gross, man. These guys have a chance to actually talk about things, give it to the community, which would be democratic. Give it some space to think about it. And within 24 fucking hours, this piece of shit mayor just goes, nah, let's just get rid of it. Wait, what is it? I never believed in division by race, as all the white men make the decision around that fucking boardroom. I'm actually really angry. I feel a bit emotional. I'm really angry.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly what you're saying there. It's easy to believe that there's no division or problems along ethnic and racial lines in the country when you've always been on the top of the pile.
Yeah.
And you got there through your own incredible genius, didn't you? Not because of the circumstances that you were born into. So, you know, it's very easy to have that perception and not actually look and listen to others and who aren't in your situation. And this is the thing. It's just a total disinterest in saying, well, why do they feel that Māori wards are important? Maybe I should listen to that as their mayor, rather than going and cancelling that and not even not consulting, not even having the referendum, which, you know, he should know they would probably lose. So yeah, it's pretty bad.
But you're right. I mean, just what he said. I've never believed in racial division. I don't give a fuck what you believe. If this is a place that we run a democracy, it matters what the community thinks. I've never believed, and of course, then you get onto the idea of, and we've had extensive talks about this on the show, but there are other wards. There are rural wards, right? Rural wards, which obviously are a place that farmers and farming communities and rural communities get an overrepresented say in there as well. Guess what? None of those are voted on. They just get decided. And guess what? This fucking government hasn't said, oh, by the way, you know all those rural wards that councils have just decided to have without a referendum? We're going to do the same thing for them. So again, it's just this pushback against, I'm not even going to say race, it's this pushback against Māori. You know, that's the only thing they're pushing back against. It's just, it's infuriating. And someone said in the chat, and you're so right, this is why you vote in local elections. The Ratepayers Association, who are generally old white people with several properties, they are overrepresented on the actual council and in the voting booth. And I don't want to be an arsehole and go, no, well, if you don't vote, it's your fault, because I get it. I get it how disenfranchised we can be when we're living in a world that doesn't reflect us or be near us or look like what we're going to do. But if you remove yourself from it altogether, then this is the end result. I mean, Northland, Māori population in Northland, I think, is the highest per capita than anywhere in the country. You know, this racist mayor probably could go quite easily if you guys got together and sorted it out at the next election. It's just gross. It's just gross.
Yeah. I saw that clip of Karen McNulty in the House asking Simeon Brown, who was the responsible minister, about that very question about, so you say that there should be a referendum before you create any special wards, but is that only going to apply to Māori wards, or is it going to apply to other special wards like rural wards? Or whenever you create a ward, will there have to be a referendum? And little Simeon gets up and sort of sheepishly says, oh, no, we're just doing it for Māori wards. And yeah, it's completely lacking in principle. You know, it almost sort of sounds principled at first. Go, you know, if you're going to create new wards, you should have a referendum on that, until you realise that that's not what happens with other wards at all, and never has been. And it's just rubbish. It's just anti-Māori pandering. Yeah.
And it's all, sorry, I just need a little bit of puppy time. So it's just for people who are getting grumpy. We have it's like a palate cleanser, bring Nala in to cleanse the palate. And it's this thing over and over again. And we've been mostly pointing the bone at old David Seymour, but the rural wards in this situation, they don't want what they consider to be equal out anywhere else in society. You know, they don't want to equal out rural wards. They don't want to make that fair and equitable and democratic. They only want to do it to the Māori wards. They don't want to, you know, worry about anything to do with non-Māori when it comes to privileges that some other people groups have got within the human rights classifications. They only want to level the field. And so all they're trying to do is just put there, and I've used this term before, and some people have given me some grief because of the connotations, but I don't care. They just want to put their knee on the neck of Māori, subjugate them so they get more votes next time around by that white, racist, white supremacist element within their community, and keep on keeping on getting their titles and going off and shaking hands internationally, as you said, Clint. I hate it.
Yeah. And you like to think that it doesn't play as well as it used to, that racism isn't as embedded in our community as it once was. And I generally think things have improved, but nonetheless, these guys got elected on a pretty racist platform.
And there's also
like
an
you
attrition.
say,
There's an attrition.
that's
That's
not only
coming
on them; it's also on us.
Yeah. So I think you're right. It's better than it was,
but it's also on the left to fight it. Yeah.
The attrition that needs to come. So like you talk to people under 50, very different vibe around this kind of stuff than people over 70. And it will change with the population growth as well. And some parts of the world, it's the same everywhere. Some parts of the world, the right bloc is really worried about that because those views, the Fox News watchers, that are average age of a Fox News watcher is something like 75, they're still a strong voting base, but they're getting smaller and smaller every time because the age is going up and the people are coming down, the number of people. And that's a part of it as well. But those people still are the people in power. Those grey hairs are the people in power, the ones who are up in that top, what do I call it? Their third stage, the summer of life, the autumn, whatever it is, the Halloween of life, whatever theirs would be called. So yeah. Hey Clint, it's been marvelous having you on. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you for giving us some time today, and thank you for helping me do this or giving Chewy a night off to hopefully get better. A couple of super chats. Paula says Palmerston North Council, awesome. Not only do they vote to protect their Māori wards, they are investigating what consequences there are if they do not hold a binding referendum as well. Yeah, because that's the other thing. People have to participate in those as well. Because what if you're in a rural sector, or I don't want to actually cast aspersions on all rural people, but predominantly might be less welcoming of a Māori ward. Everyone needs to vote. Everyone needs to get in there and do it when the time comes. There we go. It was Kiwi Bird. This is why you should vote in your local elections. I've got one thing I'm going to finish with, but this one from Mr. Arvid. Thank you for your super chat. How about you fix the negative Māori stats before you think about this racist shit? That's something else that's been fairly clear. It's like this government will identify an issue, right? And then they'll go, so we're going to stop what we're doing in that area. But they're not giving in. The ferries are a perfect example. It's a less important example, but they're stopping the thing they say is an issue, but they haven't said, but this is the way that we're going to fix it. It's ridiculous. Leonie says this: if they want one race, then make it Māori. Now, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. There's actually a huge amount of validity in this for this, a couple of reasons. When I used to work in Talkback, what I would get is a lot of those people who sit on those board, those councils that you saw, those generation phoning me up. They've been talking about the neighbours and the migrants and the Maori and the, those people, they don't assimilate into community society and yada, 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 and we should be one people. And I used to say to them, I'd say, okay, well, there's probably 3 ways you can be one people. They can come and be like you, which is actually what people are saying in that world. When they're saying we all should be one, what they're saying is be like us. I said, you could choose to be like them, or maybe you guys could meet somewhere in the middle. Maybe that would be a way of doing it, where you give, they take, you give, whatever it is. But I always used to say the second thing was like, if you are saying that they need to join society, let's say it's a new migrant to the country, they need to be a part of it. I said, how many times have you opened your door and asked them to come in? Because if we want that, like you don't typically, it's hard to gate crash a party. It's much easier to have a host welcome you in. So the attitude of let's learn a bit from them and they can learn a bit from us and we can be one, and let's make sure we invite them in and melting pot. But it just seems what people are saying is we should be one people. What they're saying is you should be like us. And when they're saying they isolate themselves and they don't join in, that's because you never fucking invite them. I think they're 2 really important things we could pass on and learn, Clint.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
It's been fun tonight, sir. Thank you for coming on board.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Chewy will be jealous that we nearly made it to an hour and a half, our world famous 90-minute hour. So it's been very good. Genuinely, thanks for coming on board. You always bring an angle from being places that we haven't been that, we have to get for people like you. Yes, and yes, I can see people are enjoying the dog. So that's good as well. So everyone's happy. I will finish up by saying, reminding people, actually, if you want to support Rainbow Storytime and you want to help us out as well, the merch is up and running, b18shop.nz. And remember, if you want to be a part of what we do more long-term and permanently, Patreon's on patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Did we have closing credits when you last visited us or not?
I don't think you did.
You're gonna enjoy this then. So just stick with us, because we typically stay whilst the closing credit. We actually got a competition going on at the moment, Clint. We've had people entering their theme tunes for us, and tomorrow night we're gonna reveal which is the theme song that we're going with. And the people who have entered, we've had like 17 entries to design us a theme tune, and the person that wins it's going to win $500. So that's pretty cool as well. So thanks for being with us tonight, team. Stay right there, Clint, and I'll be with you in a second.
And sure, pick up the news, big hairy style. Keep it.
You're actually in these credits, Clint, because you're a patron.
Yes. Yeah.
Where the politics play, they bring the truth.
There you go. Right there, look at that.
Here we are.
Every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for these, just facts straight up. Bad and true, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, they'll make the right choice.
All right, team, that's us for another night. Another huge thanks to Clint. Enjoy the theme tune, guys. It's the last time you're going to hear this one. I'll make sure to put it on the Facebook page or something, because I know people have enjoyed this as we've been using it and playing it. And thank you to all our beautiful patrons who are scrolling through the screen at the moment for being a part of what we do. If you're interested in supporting us, being more involved in what we do on a day-to-day basis, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Hopefully Chhour will be back tomorrow night. Hopefully he's feeling better, and if he is, we'll see him then. If he's not, we won't. Other than that, Clint, thanks again for coming on board, mate. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And we'll catch you all tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo!